Brianna Martinez stands in full tactical gear, her eyes cold as winter steel. Behind her, Douglas Coleman whimpers on his knees in handcuffs. "Please, I'm sorry. Please don't do this to me," he begs. The same boy who hours earlier had tied her to a locker and ripped her jeans now trembles before the quiet girl he never should have underestimated. What Douglas Coleman thought was his moment of ultimate victory became the evidence that destroyed his entire criminal empire. Because the helpless scholarship student he tortured was actually a federal operative gathering proof to bring down his judge father's money laundering operation. The basement locker room of Roosevelt Preparatory Academy echoes with Douglas's desperate pleas. "My dad's a federal judge. You can't arrest me." But federal agent Brianna Martinez just smiles as she reads him his rights. "Your daddy's already in custody, Douglas. Turns out, underestimating the new girl was the biggest mistake your family ever made. Comment your country and hit subscribe, because this story of hidden strength will blow your mind." But let's go back to where it all began. 3 weeks earlier, when nobody knew that the quiet girl walking through Roosevelt Prep's marble hallways was actually on the most important undercover mission of her young career. Roosevelt Preparatory Academy stands like a monument to privilege. Its Gothic towers pierce the morning sky, while luxury cars drop off the children of judges, senators, and Fortune 500 executives. The tuition alone costs $60,000 per year, more than most families earn in their lifetime. Inside these hallowed halls, democracy dies, and hereditary power rules with an iron fist disguised as academic excellence. Brianna Martinez clutches her worn backpack tighter as she approaches the imposing entrance. Her thrift store uniform stands out like a beacon among the designer clothes surrounding her. To everyone watching, she's just another scholarship student lucky enough to breathe the same air as America's future leaders. They have no idea she's a third-generation intelligence operative trained from birth to blend into any environment. The marble foyer stretches before her like a cathedral. Crystal chandeliers worth more than small houses cast rainbow patterns across walls lined with portraits of influential alumni. Students cluster in carefully arranged social hierarchies, the royals near the grand staircase, the nobles by the trophy cases, the commoners pressed against the walls like forgotten furniture. "Well, well, what do we have here?" The voice cuts through morning chatter like a blade through silk. Douglas Coleman descends the marble staircase like a prince reviewing his subjects. His $500 shoes click against each step with the rhythm of inherited arrogance. Behind him follow his inner circle. Kevin Turner, whose police chief father has covered up 3 drunk driving incidents, Marcus Phillips, whose tech genius serves only corruption, Jake Wilson, whose silence is bought with his family's protection, and Tony Garcia, whose camera captures more than just school memories. Brianna keeps her eyes down, playing the role perfectly. Every tremor in her voice carefully calculated to seem authentic. "I'm sorry. I was just trying to find my locker," she whispers, knowing that appearing weak now will make her eventual revelation even more devastating. Douglas circles her like a predator studying prey. His designer cologne can't mask the stench of entitlement rotting his soul from within. "Scholarship student, right?" he says, making the words sound like a disease. "Let me guess. Mommy cleans houses, and Daddy mows lawns." His crew laughs on cue, their privilege protecting them from consequences like armor made of family connections. What Douglas can't see beneath Brianna's carefully crafted exterior is 15 years of tactical training. Combat skills learned from her CIA operative parents, psychological warfare techniques that would make seasoned agents weep, and a mission that will expose Roosevelt Prep as the money laundering front it truly is. Her grandmother isn't a retired teacher living on Social Security. She's Silver Fox, a legendary operative who has toppled governments and dismantled criminal empires across 3 continents. If you're already hooked by this story of hidden strength and perfect revenge, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales, where bullies get exactly what they deserve. If these stories of justice inspire you as much as they inspire me to tell them, consider hitting the thanks button below, because your support helps me continue sharing these powerful moments that need to be heard. Thank you so much for being part of this journey with me. The first bell rings through Roosevelt Prep's hallways like a funeral dirge. Brianna finds her assigned locker in the basement level, where scholarship students are segregated from their betters. The number combination she's given doesn't work. When she approaches the main office, the secretary barely glances up from her manicure. "Equipment malfunction isn't our problem, dear. Figure it out yourself." But Brianna Martinez doesn't need working lockers or helpful staff. Her backpack contains everything a deep-cover operative requires. Hidden in false compartments are microtransmitters, night vision contact lenses, lock-picking tools disguised as school supplies, and encrypted communication devices that look like ordinary smartphones. Every item serves her mission, gathering evidence of the systematic corruption that flows through Roosevelt Prep like poisoned blood through diseased veins. Douglas Coleman's first class is Advanced Placement Government. The irony would be hilarious if it weren't so tragic. He holds court at the back of the room while their teacher drones about constitutional law, completely unaware that the quiet girl 3 rows ahead is recording every word he speaks. "My dad says the Constitution is just a piece of paper for people too weak to take what they want," Douglas whispers to his followers. Real power comes from knowing whose palms to grease. Brianna's hidden recorder captures each syllable. Federal prosecutors will find his casual confession deeply interesting during his trial. She's learned more about Roosevelt Prep's criminal connections in 3 hours than the FBI discovered in 3 years of investigation. Sometimes the best hiding place is in plain sight among your enemies. The cafeteria reveals the full scope of Roosevelt's social engineering. Tables arranged like a medieval court, with Douglas's crew occupying the high table, while lesser mortals arrange themselves by family net worth. Brianna sits alone at a corner table, picking at overpriced salad, while documenting conversation fragments that reveal a criminal enterprise spanning multiple states. "The Vegas shipment comes through Thursday," Kevin Turner says, thinking his whisper can't carry across the room. "Dad's got the patrol routes memorized." What he doesn't know is that Brianna's directional microphone, disguised as a hearing aid, captures every word with crystal clarity. Marcus Phillips opens his laptop, screen angled away from teachers but perfectly visible to Brianna's strategically placed microcamera. She watches him hack into 3 different school districts' financial systems, transferring lunch money accounts into offshore shell companies. The FBI's Cybercrime Division will have enough evidence to prosecute him as an adult. The harassment begins on day 2 with surgical precision. Douglas Coleman didn't earn his position through random cruelty, but through calculated psychological warfare. He starts with digital manipulation, fake social media profiles, spreading rumors that Brianna has sexually transmitted diseases, criminal parents, and mental health issues requiring medication. By lunchtime, her fictional reputation precedes her everywhere. Students avoid her table like she carries the plague. Teachers eye her with suspicion, and even custodial staff whisper as she passes. But what Douglas sees as masterful manipulation, Brianna recognizes as admissible evidence of cyberbullying, identity theft, and defamation. Crimes that carry federal sentences when they cross state lines through internet platforms. The gaslighting campaign escalates during week 1. Brianna's locker combination changes mysteriously. Her textbooks disappear and reappear with pages torn out. Assignments submitted electronically vanish from servers just before deadline. The administration's response follows a predictable pattern. They blame her for being irresponsible, while Douglas's crew smirks from across hallways. Maybe scholarship students shouldn't be given access to advanced computer systems, Principal Morrison suggests during their meeting, her tone dripping with manufactured concern. Some people aren't equipped to handle technology responsibly. What she doesn't realize is that every discriminatory word is being recorded by devices planted throughout her office. Week 2 brings economic warfare. $500 in textbook replacement fees for books that were destroyed in her locker. Accusations of theft when planted items are discovered in her backpack. Mysterious charges appearing on her bank account from locations she's never visited. The pattern reveals sophisticated financial crimes coordinated across multiple institutions. Money laundering operations that use student accounts as temporary repositories for illegal funds. Douglas confronts her outside the library with manufactured evidence. Photos showing her supposedly stealing from other students' lockers. Bank statements proving her suspicious financial activity. Witness testimonies from classmates who swear they saw her dealing drugs in school bathrooms. "We could make all of this go away," he offers with the magnanimous smile of born aristocracy. "All you have to do is transfer schools and never come back." But Brianna Martinez has spent her entire life learning how predators operate. Every threat Douglas makes, every piece of fake evidence he presents, every witness he's bribed or intimidated gets documented with the thoroughness of someone building a federal case. "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispers, playing her role perfectly while her hidden cameras capture his confession to conspiracy, extortion, and witness intimidation. The sexual humiliation phase begins during week 3 with hidden cameras planted in the girls' locker room. Marcus Phillips demonstrates his technical skills by installing devices so small they're nearly invisible, positioned to capture compromising images of female students changing clothes. What he doesn't know is that Brianna spotted every camera within minutes and has been feeding them false footage while documenting the real criminal enterprise. Tony Garcia's role becomes clear when he approaches her with a tablet full of photoshopped images. Pictures of her face grafted onto explicit photos with male teachers, creating blackmail material designed to destroy her reputation permanently. "One phone call to the police," he threatens, "and everyone thinks you've been sleeping with Professor Martinez for better grades." The fabricated evidence is sophisticated enough to fool casual observers, but not federal forensic specialists. Every digital manipulation leaves traces that will lead prosecutors directly back to Roosevelt Prep's criminal network. Brianna pretends to be devastated while secretly celebrating each new piece of evidence. They're building her case for her with every crime they commit. Douglas orchestrates the cafeteria humiliation with theatrical precision. 40 students watch as he approaches her lunch table with fake sympathy painted across his privileged features. "I heard about your financial troubles," he announces loud enough for everyone to hear. "Maybe if you weren't spending your scholarship money on drugs, you could afford decent clothes." The accusation hangs in the air like poison. Students lean closer to hear her response, while phones appear to record her potential breakdown. But Brianna Martinez has performed under pressure, in conditions that would break trained operatives. One spoiled rich boy's playground theatrics barely registers as a challenge. "I don't use drugs," she says simply, knowing that her blood test results from last week's routine medical exam will prove her innocence when this case goes to trial. What Douglas doesn't realize is that Silver Fox has been documenting his family's pharmaceutical connections. The Coleman family fortune built on prescription opioid distribution to small towns across America. Friday afternoon arrives like Judgment Day. Brianna receives the anonymous tip about her backpack being moved to the basement locker room exactly as intelligence suggested. The trap is obvious to anyone with tactical training. Isolated location, no security cameras, multiple exit routes blocked by strategic positioning. Douglas Coleman thinks he's orchestrated the perfect crime. In reality, he's walked directly into a federal sting operation. She enters the basement at 6:15 exactly, knowing that 4 pairs of eyes are watching from concealed positions. Kevin Turner behind the equipment lockers, Marcus Phillips near the electrical panel, Jake Wilson by the emergency exit, Tony Garcia with his camera ready to record her humiliation. The lighting has been deliberately sabotaged to create deeper shadows. They want her afraid and disoriented when they spring their trap. Well, well, if it isn't our little scholarship princess. Douglas emerges from behind the lockers like a villain from a horror movie, his perfect smile twisted into something genuinely frightening. Looking for something that belongs to you. He holds up her backpack, dangling it like bait before a hungry animal. Brianna forces her voice to tremble authentically. Please, just give me my bag. I need to get home. Every word is calculated to reinforce their perception of her as helpless prey. The more confident they become, the more evidence they'll provide of premeditation. The attack unfolds with practiced coordination. Jake Wilson grabs her arms from behind while Kevin Turner blocks her escape route. Marcus Phillips disables his hidden camera jammers to ensure clear documentation, and Tony Garcia begins filming what they believe will be the destruction of their most persistent problem. Tonight you learn your place in the Roosevelt hierarchy. Douglas produces a box cutter with theatrical flourish, the blade catching fluorescent light like a promise of violence. These jeans look expensive for a scholarship girl. Let's see what's underneath. The zip ties bite into her wrists with professional tightness. They've clearly practiced this technique on other victims, though none of those earlier crimes were documented by federal surveillance equipment. Jake secures her ankles to the locker vents, while Kevin ensures her arms remain immobilized behind the metal handles. Within minutes, she's completely restrained in exactly the position they planned. Douglas approaches with the box cutter raised. Struggling just makes it hurt more, princess. The blade slides through denim with surgical precision, cutting from ankle to mid-thigh with deliberate slowness designed to maximize psychological trauma. Her jeans fall away in ruined strips, leaving her exposed in underwear while 4 boys document every second of her humiliation. Look at you now, Douglas sneers, producing a permanent marker from his jacket pocket. Not so proud anymore, are we? He writes loser across her forehead with bold strokes, then adds creative obscenities to her arms and legs, while his crew laughs like hyenas over a fresh kill. The sticky soda poured into her hair serves no purpose beyond cruelty. Grape flavor mixed with motor oil creates a mess that will take hours to clean, while marking her as their victim for everyone to see. Tony Garcia circles with his camera, capturing every angle of their masterpiece, while making comments that will help federal prosecutors prove conspiracy charges. Security won't do rounds until Monday morning, princess, Douglas informs her with mock sympathy. 3 days alone should teach you some respect for your betters. They seal the basement door with duct tape from outside, ensuring she can't call for help even if she manages to free herself from the restraints. The moment their footsteps fade, Agent Brianna Martinez stops pretending to be a victim. 15 years of tactical training activate like a switch being flipped. The microtransmitter hidden in her fake tooth filling sends an encrypted signal. Package delivered. Harvest protocol initiated. Her night vision contact lenses turn the basement from pitch darkness into clearly visible tactical space. Every exit, every potential weapon, every piece of evidence cataloged with professional efficiency. The zip ties holding her wrists are commercial grade but not military specification. She could break free in under 90 seconds if necessary. Instead, she activates the lock-picking tools concealed in her belt buckle. Custom CIA equipment disguised as ordinary fashion accessories allows her to free one hand without damaging the restraints. Once mobile, she accesses the security panel near the electrical meter, reactivating the cameras Douglas's crew disabled while programming them to loop innocent footage. The school's computer network falls to her infiltration like a house of cards. 15 minutes of expert hacking provides access to 3 years of financial records, communication logs, and security footage. The evidence she downloads will expose Roosevelt Prep as a money laundering operation serving organized crime families across the eastern seaboard. Douglas Coleman's phone proves surprisingly easy to crack. His password is his birth date followed by 3 zeros, the kind of lazy security that makes federal investigators weep with joy. Inside, she finds illegal photographs of female students, recorded conversations about criminal activities, and encrypted messages coordinating drug distribution through school channels. By 8 o'clock, Brianna has planted listening devices throughout the basement while maintaining her restrained position. When Silver Fox arrives with tactical equipment and backup documentation, the mission parameters have already expanded beyond simple bullying investigation. Target has escalated to sexual assault with organized crime connections. She reports through encrypted channels, requesting authorization for full takedown protocol. Silver Fox's response comes within minutes. Authorization granted. Harvest everything and prepare for systematic destruction. The quiet grandmother who bakes cookies and helps with homework transforms into the legendary operative who dismantled the Medellin cartel, her cover identity as effective as her granddaughter's. The basement becomes a command center as sophisticated surveillance equipment fills every corner. When Douglas and his crew return Monday morning expecting to find a broken victim, they'll instead discover the full power of federal law enforcement focused on their destruction. Brianna returns to her restraints by 9:30, maintaining the illusion while hidden cameras document every word the returning bullies speak. Their boastful confessions about previous crimes provide enough evidence to prosecute them as adults for conspiracy, sexual assault, and participation in organized criminal enterprise. The trap is set, the evidence gathered, and justice prepared. Douglas Coleman and his privileged crew have no idea that their moment of perceived victory has become the foundation of their complete destruction. Monday morning will bring revelations that shatter not just their lives, but the entire corrupt system that created them. Watching her, apparently trapped and helpless in that basement, knowing what she's actually accomplished while they celebrated their cruelty, makes you wonder what you would have done in her situation. Would you have fought back immediately, or would you have played the long game like a true professional? Comment below and let me know your thoughts, because the way this story ends will change everything you think you know about the quiet girl. Nobody notices. Monday morning arrives at Roosevelt Preparatory Academy, like the dawn of Judgment Day. Douglas Coleman strides through the marble hallways with the confident swagger of someone who believes he's broken his most persistent problem. His designer shoes click against polished floors, in rhythm with his heartbeat, each step bringing him closer to what he imagines will be his moment of ultimate victory. The basement door still bears traces of duct tape from Friday night. Douglas peels away the remaining strips with theatrical ceremony, while his crew gathers behind him like vultures anticipating a feast. Ready to see what 3 days of solitude did to our little princess, he asks, his voice dripping with sadistic anticipation. Kevin Turner adjusts his phone camera to capture what they expect will be their greatest triumph. "She's probably still crying," he whispers, with the casual cruelty of someone who's never faced real consequences. Marcus Phillips hacks the basement lighting system to create dramatic shadows. Even Jake Wilson, usually silent, grins with anticipation of seeing their victim completely destroyed. The basement door swings open to reveal an empty space. No broken girl, no torn restraints, no evidence of the weekend they thought she'd spent in terrified isolation. Instead, a single note hangs from the locker where they left her. Neat handwriting on FBI letterhead that makes Douglas's blood turn to ice water. "Thank you for providing such comprehensive evidence of your criminal enterprise," the note reads in Brianna's careful script. "Please check your phones for a preview of your federal charges." Douglas's hands tremble as he fumbles for his smartphone. The screen displays a video compilation of their Friday night assault, complete with audio commentary identifying each participant by name and cataloging their specific crimes. Kevin Turner's phone buzzes with an incoming call. "Kevin, this is Detective Morrison with Internal Affairs. Your father has been placed under arrest for conspiracy and evidence tampering. Report to the main office immediately for questioning." His confident smirk dissolves into panic as the reality of their situation begins to penetrate his privileged worldview. Marcus Phillips discovers that his laptop has been completely wiped. 3 years of illegal hacking tools, stolen financial data, and compromising photographs of female students have vanished into digital oblivion. What he doesn't know is that everything has been copied to federal servers, where cybercrime specialists are building a case that will destroy him more thoroughly than any teenage humiliation ever could. Tony Garcia finds his hidden camera equipment replaced with professional surveillance devices, federal quality recording equipment that has been documenting every word spoken in Roosevelt Prep's basement for 72 hours. His illegal recordings of female students have been replaced with footage of him confessing to creating child pornography, evidence that will follow him for the rest of his life. The first federal agents arrive at Roosevelt Preparatory Academy at 7:30 precisely. Black SUVs with government plates disgorge teams of investigators who spread through the building like antibodies attacking an infection. Principal Morrison watches through her office window as her carefully constructed criminal empire crumbles in real time. Decades of money laundering operations exposed by one quiet girl nobody bothered to investigate properly. Judge Coleman's arrest makes national headlines. The federal courthouse, where he once dispensed corrupted justice, now serves as the backdrop for his perp walk in handcuffs. Your Honor has been charged with racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, the FBI spokesperson announces to assembled reporters. Additional charges are pending as the investigation continues. The Roosevelt Prep student body watches in stunned silence as federal agents escort Douglas Coleman from his first-period advanced placement government class. The irony isn't lost on anyone present as the boy who bragged about constitutional law being meaningless gets read his constitutional rights. His designer clothes and perfect haircut can't protect him from the reality of federal prosecution. Privilege becomes powerless when confronted with actual justice. Kevin Turner's police chief father discovers that 20 years of evidence tampering have been documented by federal surveillance. Every case he fixed, every crime he covered up, every family he protected in exchange for political favors now forms the foundation of his destruction. The thin blue line becomes a noose around his neck as fellow officers distance themselves from his radioactive corruption. Sarah Williams approaches the federal agents with tears streaming down her face. "I have information about other victims," she whispers, finally finding courage after years of silence. Her testimony opens floodgates as dozens of students come forward with stories of systematic harassment, financial extortion, and sexual humiliation that reveal Roosevelt Prep as a training ground for sociopathic behavior. Marcus Phillips's parents discover that their son's computer skills extended far beyond academic excellence. Federal cybercrime investigators present them with evidence of identity theft, financial fraud, and distribution of illegal content that carries mandatory minimum sentences. Their lawyer's advice is brutally simple. Prepare for your son to be prosecuted as an adult for federal crimes. The money laundering investigation expands like ripples in a pond. Roosevelt Prep's financial records reveal connections to organized crime families across 3 states, pharmaceutical companies distributing illegal opioids, and political corruption reaching into congressional offices. What began as a school bullying case becomes a federal investigation that will reshape American politics. Jake Wilson's silence finally breaks under federal interrogation. His role as enforcer for Douglas's crew was just the beginning of his criminal education. FBI agents present him with evidence of aggravated assault, witness intimidation, and participation in organized crime that will follow him into adulthood like a shadow he can never escape. The school assembly called for Tuesday morning feels like a tribunal. 500 students pack into Roosevelt Prep's auditorium, while federal agents line the walls like armed sentries. Principal Morrison stands at the podium with the hollow expression of someone whose world has collapsed overnight. Her carefully crafted image as an educator exposed as fraudulent as everything else in her corrupt institution. "Students, we've had some developments over the weekend," she begins, her voice cracking with barely controlled panic. Behind her, agents prepare evidence tables displaying the scope of Roosevelt Prep's criminal operations. Drugs, illegal weapons, fraudulent documents, and financial records that tell the story of systematic corruption spanning decades. The auditorium doors open to admit someone nobody recognizes, a young woman in professional attire who walks with the confident stride of someone accustomed to command. Her face looks familiar, but the transformation from victim to authority figure is so complete that recognition comes slowly for most observers. "Good morning, Roosevelt Prep." Brianna Martinez addresses the assembly with clear, strong voice that carries no trace of the frightened scholarship student they remember. "I'm Federal Agent Brianna Martinez, and I've spent the last 3 weeks documenting the criminal enterprise operating within your school." The silence in the auditorium becomes absolute. 500 teenagers processing the impossibility of what they're witnessing as the girl they watched being humiliated reveals herself as the architect of their tormentor's destruction. Douglas Coleman, seated in the front row under federal guard, stares at her with the expression of someone watching his reality disintegrate. "For 3 weeks, you watched me being bullied, harassed, and assaulted," Brianna continues, her voice gaining strength with each word. "What you were actually witnessing was the systematic documentation of federal crimes committed by students whose families believed themselves above the law." The evidence presentation begins with video footage from Friday night. Every student in the auditorium watches as Douglas and his crew tie Brianna to the lockers, destroy her clothing, and abandon her in the basement. But now, they see what happened next. The professional efficiency with which she freed herself, infiltrated their computer systems, and turned their crime scene into a federal evidence collection operation. "Douglas Coleman, you are under arrest for sexual assault, conspiracy, and participation in organized crime," Brianna announces as federal agents move toward his seat. His breakdown is immediate and complete. The privileged teenager who threatened to destroy her now dissolves into tears and incoherent begging. "Please, I'm sorry. I didn't know who you were," he whimpers as handcuffs click around his wrists. "My family has money, We can pay you. We can make this go away. But Agent Brianna Martinez simply shakes her head, with the sad expression of someone who's seen too much corruption to be surprised by anything. Kevin Turner attempts to flee through the auditorium's side exit. His panic-driven dash for freedom ends when federal agents tackle him in full view of his former classmates. The police chief's son, who believed himself untouchable, discovers that privilege means nothing when federal law enforcement decides you're a target. Marcus Phillips's laptop explodes in digital flames as FBI cybercrime specialists demonstrate the scope of his illegal activities. 3 years of hacking, identity theft, and financial fraud displayed on the auditorium's projection screens for everyone to witness. His technical genius becomes the foundation of his destruction as federal prosecutors build a case that will follow him for decades. Tony Garcia's illegal recordings play for the assembled students. His violations of privacy, creation of compromising content, and distribution of illegal materials documented with the thoroughness that only federal investigators can provide. The camera that he used to humiliate others becomes the instrument of his public disgrace. The transformation of Roosevelt Preparatory Academy begins immediately. Federal oversight replaces the corrupt administration that enabled decades of criminal activity. New policies, transparent reporting systems, and mandatory federal training for all staff create an environment where privilege can no longer purchase immunity from consequences. Douglas Coleman's sentencing hearing attracts national attention. The federal judge who replaces his corrupt father shows no mercy for juvenile criminals who committed adult crimes with adult consequences. "You believed that wealth and family connections placed you above the law," she tells him, as she imposes the maximum sentence allowed. "Today, you learn that justice applies equally to everyone." Judge Coleman's federal prison sentence sends shockwaves through America's judicial system. 15 years for corruption, racketeering, and conspiracy charges that expose the depth of institutional rot within supposedly sacred legal institutions. His fall from grace becomes a cautionary tale studied in law schools across the country. Kevin Turner's father faces his own reckoning as fellow police officers testify against him. 20 years of evidence tampering, witness intimidation, and conspiracy charges that destroy not just his career, but his freedom. The thin blue line he thought would protect him becomes the noose that hangs his reputation permanently. Sarah Williams finds her voice as the first witness in multiple federal cases. Her courage in coming forward inspires dozens of other victims to break their silence and seek justice for crimes they thought would never be prosecuted. The healing process begins with truth-telling that exposes the full scope of Roosevelt Prep's systematic abuse. Marcus Phillips discovers that federal cybercrime charges follow you everywhere. College applications rejected, job opportunities vanished, and a digital footprint that marks him as a dangerous criminal for the rest of his life. His computer skills become worthless when nobody will risk hiring someone with his federal record. The money laundering investigation reaches into Washington, D.C. itself. Congressional offices, federal agencies, and political campaigns all connected to Roosevelt Prep's criminal network face scrutiny that reshapes American politics. What began as school bullying becomes a national conversation about privilege, corruption, and institutional accountability. Jake Wilson's silence finally costs him everything. His refusal to cooperate with federal investigators earns him the maximum sentence as prosecutors make an example of students who choose loyalty to criminals over cooperation with justice. His juvenile record becomes adult consequences that will define his entire future. Agent Brianna Martinez stands before the FBI Academy graduation ceremony 6 months later. Her undercover operation at Roosevelt Prep has become a case study in how individual courage can expose systematic corruption. The quiet girl nobody noticed has become a symbol of how appearances can deceive even the most arrogant predators. The resolution brings changes that ripple across America's educational system. Federal oversight of private schools, mandatory reporting systems for bullying incidents, and criminal prosecutions for administrators who enable abuse create a new standard of accountability. Roosevelt Prep's destruction becomes the catalyst for nationwide reform. Douglas Coleman sits in federal juvenile detention, his privileged world reduced to gray concrete walls and regulation uniforms. The boy who tortured others for entertainment now experiences the powerlessness he inflicted on his victims. His appeals are routinely denied, as federal courts show no sympathy for criminals who believed wealth made them untouchable. The other victims find their voices as support groups and therapy programs help them process years of systematic abuse. Healing comes slowly but surely as they realize their suffering wasn't their fault, and their tormentors face real consequences. Justice becomes the foundation of recovery for students who thought they would never see their bullies punished. Principal Morrison's criminal conviction destroys not just her career, but her freedom. 10 years in federal prison for her role in enabling organized crime through educational institutions serves as a warning to administrators who prioritize profit over student safety. Her fall from grace becomes a cautionary tale studied in education programs nationwide. The transformation of Roosevelt Prep into a model institution takes 3 years. New leadership, federal oversight, and a culture of accountability replace the corruption that defined its previous incarnation. Students learn that privilege comes with responsibility, and that actions have consequences regardless of family connections. But the most shocking revelation comes during Brianna's final report to federal headquarters. Roosevelt Preparatory Academy was just one node in a network of corrupted educational institutions serving organized crime across America. Her success at exposing systematic abuse becomes the template for similar operations at private schools in 12 states. The evidence gathered during her 3 weeks undercover leads to federal investigations of 47 educational institutions, each one a carefully constructed criminal enterprise hiding behind academic excellence and social prestige. The quiet girl's courage becomes the foundation for the largest educational corruption investigation in American history. Federal prosecutors estimate that Brianna's operation will result in over 300 criminal convictions. Students, teachers, administrators, and parents all facing consequences for their participation in systematic abuse and criminal enterprise. Her undercover work becomes legendary within federal law enforcement circles. The visual clue that everything has changed comes during her final visit to Roosevelt Prep's campus. New students walk through hallways without fear, teachers report problems without retaliation, and administrators serve students instead of criminal organizations. The transformation is complete, but questions remain about how many other schools operate similar systems. Her emotional shift from victim to victor to symbol inspires a generation of young people who refuse to accept bullying as inevitable. Social media campaigns, student advocacy groups, and peer support networks create a culture where silence no longer protects predators. The quiet girl's courage becomes a movement that changes how America approaches institutional abuse. The ambiguous ending hints at larger operations still in progress. Federal agents continue investigating educational corruption networks, while Brianna prepares for her next undercover assignment. The battle against systematic abuse continues, as new cases emerge from institutions that thought themselves untouchable. Her final line echoes through federal training facilities where new agents learn her techniques. Never underestimate the quiet girl nobody notices, because she might be the one gathering evidence to destroy your entire world. The words become a motto for agents who specialize in exposing systematic corruption through careful observation and patient investigation. The camera fades on Agent Brianna Martinez walking toward her next assignment. Somewhere in America, another privileged institution believes itself immune to consequences, while a quiet girl takes notes and prepares to prove them wrong. Justice delayed is not justice denied when federal agents have the patience to build perfect cases against perfect criminals. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting everything, destroying not just your enemies, but the corrupt system that created them, and ensuring they never hurt anyone else again. The final twist comes 18 months later when Brianna receives a handwritten letter in federal prison mail. Douglas Coleman, now serving his adult sentence after being tried as an adult, has spent his incarceration learning something his privilege never taught him: humility. Agent Martinez. His letter begins with the careful penmanship of someone who has nothing but time to practice. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it, but I wanted you to know that what you did saved other people from becoming victims like the ones I created. His transformation in federal custody surprises even experienced corrections officers. The entitled teenager has become someone who tutors other inmates, participates in victim awareness programs, and speaks to at-risk youth about the consequences of believing privilege makes you untouchable. I was raised to think other people existed for my entertainment, he continues in careful script. You showed me that every person I hurt was someone's daughter, someone's friend, someone who mattered. I can never undo what I did, but I can spend the rest of my life making sure no one else follows my path. The letter concludes with information about 3 other private schools operating similar criminal enterprises. Even from prison, Douglas Coleman provides intelligence that leads to federal investigations exposing systematic abuse across America's most prestigious educational institutions. Redemption, Brianna realizes, sometimes comes from the most unexpected sources. Even monsters can learn to become human when consequences finally catch up with privilege.